Welcome, everybody. This is Ron Seaver, the president of the National Sports Forum. Just calling you today, calling in on our webinar here, the 5 steps that will propel your career. Certainly, we appreciate you all joining us this evening as we wrap up a Monday with the March edition of the NSF webinars. We're awfully glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us. And certainly, most definitely, on behalf of all of us here at the National Sports Forum, and our guests this evening, Ray Bednar and Bruce McLaughlin, we all send along our hopes that you and your family are safe as we continue as a nation to battle the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. We think we wanted to take a pause in the action here to pick up our webinars. We thought this would be an awfully good time for us to really, especially now while things are a little bit quiet, to work on ourselves, work on our careers. And certainly our guests tonight are going to talk a bit about the coronavirus impact, but really the focus on our webinar tonight is on you, and it's certainly on your career, more specifically on the management and the advancement of your career. Tonight's webinar will help you to prioritize your career goals. You'll be able to address your career opportunities and to provide you with the tools to accomplish your goals. So I hope you'll join with me in welcoming our 2 experts on the topic this evening, Mr. Raymond Bednar, president and founder of Hyperion Marketing Returns, and Bruce McLaughlin, partner at Hyperion Marketing Returns. I've certainly had the pleasure of having known Ray for years now, and I'm certainly delighted to welcome him and welcome Bruce tonight. The company that he and Bruce founded, I mentioned, Hyperion Marketing Returns, they celebrate their 10th year anniversary this year, working with such clients as Visa, Xerox, AT&T, Ford, Jaguar, Samsung, Bank of America, Madison Square Garden, the Cleveland Cavaliers, Phoenix Suns, the Philadelphia Eagles, to name but a few. So you can see they are known in some of the highest recognized companies out there. So Ray, if you don't mind, I'm going to turn the floor over to you now and to Bruce with our thanks for your time this evening. So please feel free to take it away.
Great. Thanks, Ron. I appreciate it. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this webinar today. And for the people that have joined us, thank you for taking time out of your stressful life to join us as well. I want to emphasize that what we're going to discuss today is things that will propel, the steps that we think will propel your career to your definition of success. And it's critical that we emphasize that we're talking about your definition of success. Everybody's got a different idea of what that could be. You know, some people have in the property side of the world or on the sponsor side of the world have different ideas of what success is going to be for them. But I think they all 3 would be helped, regardless of what that path is for you personally, will be helped by these 5 different steps. And you know, I'd like to also say that there's a recognition now that there's a massive change going on in our industry, and I'll talk about that here as we get into the main part of the presentation, where we talk about some of the effects of the coronavirus or COVID-19, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's going to have a significant impact. And I think the people that are on this call now that are thinking about that and actively addressing it, in some cases the painful way, in some ways the opportunistic way, that they're going to find themselves much better in the long run. So again, thank you for joining us. Carly is running this for us, so I'm going to ask her to move to the next slide occasionally, and that will help us kind of focus on what we're trying to do in this presentation. It'll be a short presentation. It's probably about 30 minutes, leaving time for questions. And it's very simple, very bulleted kind of conversation that we're going to be having. But I just want to set some of the kind of the parameters of what we are and who we are. I wrote a book called Sponsorship's Holy Grail. It's on your screen now. And that's still available. Actually, if you go to our website, hyperionmarketing.com, and you send us a note, we'll give you an electronic copy of it. I'm not sure if we're giving away the first 3 chapters or the entire book, whatever, but you just go to hyperion-marketing.com. You can sign up and we'll send you that book in some form or fashion. So I wrote that book after having learned about something called Six Sigma, which is a statistical process to control variation in results at General Electric. I was running a company at GE, and I went to an agency involved in the sponsorship world, working for WPP, a huge conglomerate that owned a lot of major agencies, still does today. And then I was hired by Bank of America to run their sponsorship program, which is where this was really put into deep practice. When I left Bank of America, I started this firm with Mark Rockefeller, who's just a terrific guy. Which is why, by the way, our offices have this backdrop. You can see kind of the Rockefeller building backdrop on all of our slides and in our logo. So our offices are at Rockefeller Plaza, and Mark is just a terrific partner and half owner of this business. So that's kind of a quick background for us. Bruce, on the other hand, has been with me since, we were trying to figure it out today, I think close to 20 years now, in different incarnations between running an agency and then this current 10-year stint with Hyperion Marketing Returns. In that period of time, we have worked with some of the stars that have skyrocketed in our world of sponsorship and sports and arts and entertainment, and we've seen a lot of the struggles, a tremendous amount of the struggles, which have informed the 5 points we want to talk about tonight. So with that, I'll make sure Bruce gets a chance to introduce himself. Bruce, is there anything you want to add about your background? Bruce has a tremendous PR background. He used to be an editor at a major newspaper. Anything you want to add, Bruce?
No, I think that sums it up pretty well. My contribution is really as having a really varied background, 18 years in journalism, and then since the year 2000, working with Ray, more or less continuously in event marketing, sponsorship marketing, sports, PR, the agency world, and then proud to be part of what we're doing right now with Hyperion, helping to optimize results.
Great. Yep. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. What I want to kind of frame all this in is what we do, so you understand who Hyperion is you're talking about our viewpoints on what a successful career is. We use a process that centers on sustainable return on investment, and that means we are the people that generally advocate for optimizing systems, investments, relationships, etc. If we take a client that has 100 sponsorships, we'll tell them the top 10 that make them the most money, and not really in brand value so much, but how much money it creates for them in terms of business results. And we'll show them the bottom 10, the ones that are causing them the most problem. And for properties, we tell them if they say we're working with a team or a league, we're working with what are your top people you want to go after, and why do you want to go after them, and what are the 10 you want to drop off the bottom of your list. So we are results oriented, but we're very results oriented based upon metrics and return on investment. I think ultimately this is where we all ladder up to in organizations, are to people that are very concerned about whether or not the investment makes sense, and it's not just the moniker that we have to suffer under terribly, I think at times, a fun profession, right? We're in a fun profession. People that say that haven't worked every weekend of their life, haven't dealt with irritated clients and customers over the most silly things and some of the most real things. So we are a metrics-based company. So with that, we've got to work on these sides and understand these people pretty well, both sides of the sponsorship world. So let's go to the next slide. These are 5 steps, and we're going to talk about each one of these briefly here, right? I'm not going to blurt them out now. I'm going to go through them one by one and ask Bruce to comment on them as well. But my idea is to delve right into the meat of this conversation. And then after this, we're going to talk about the coronavirus, the changing nature of our industry, and what the future looks like from our perspective and our experience and what our clients are telling us today. And then finally, we're going to talk about some next steps. What are some things that you might consider doing as you leave this presentation? So let's talk about this very first one, bring potential solutions, not problems. I was an Army officer, and I was in the cavalry on the East-West German border, and I had a commander, this colonel in the cavalry, right out of the movie Apocalypse Now, if you ever saw that with Duvall. And he was that kind of really crazy guy. And he used to say, his saying was, if you cut the roses, bring me the roses now. Do not bring me roses a day later. So if you've got a problem, bring it to me immediately. And then he immediately said, but you better bring me solutions, because what I don't need is you delegating up to me all your problems. I've asked you to work for me in the sense of bringing me solutions. This is a fundamental mindset difference for a different approach for a lot of people. It may apply to some of you on the phone, it may not. But if you look at an honest evaluation of yourself, you have to ask yourself, when you see things that are crazy, are you going to the people that you work with, whether they're sponsors, whether they're properties, whether they're your boss, people that work for you, and are you going to them with, hey, we've got a couple ways we can handle this with a positive attitude, or are you going to them with, here's the latest problem, it looks like they're going to shut us down for this show. What are we going to do, right? And laying down the problem on the plate as opposed to, all right, they're going to shut us down. There's a couple things we can do here. There's a virtual conference we can hold. We can reach out personally to each client. You can come to these same problems that are addressed with solutions. So bringing potential solutions, not problems, has two effects. It provides that person with what we would term in the journalistic side of the world, something to bleed on. That's you used to have a red pen. When you handed in the paper in the old days before the electronic stuff, your instructor would grade it with a red pen. It would be called bleeding on your paper. So they get a chance to form their idea based upon your initial contribution. It gives them something to think about. You're not giving them a quote, green field. The second thing, it makes you look like somebody who is trying to be an action provider, not a helpless victim of everything. These combined together to provide this positive attitude that is indispensable when it comes to discussions on who do you want to work with, who do you like, who do you want to promote, who do you want to have stay in our organization, who should we invest in? It's the solution providers. It's not the people that bring problems. Problem bringers are pretty generally perceived as execution type people who get things done, but they don't really have a place in the hierarchy moving up and onward. That's been my experience with all of our clients, and certainly in my professional career, having people report to me as well. Bruce, is there anything you'd add to the solutions versus problems approach?
Yeah, one of the things that sort of has informed our approach is our metrics-driven nature. So when we look at results and judge the value of those results, they have to be in context. And that context is what is the company or what is the client or what is the person trying to achieve? And then when you bring potential solutions, it has to be contextual. And the better you understand what people are trying to accomplish or achieve, the better your solutions are going to be received, and the more savvy you're going to look. So what you need to do is immerse yourself. You might call it empathy or some other approach, but immerse yourself in the perspective of the people who you're bringing your solutions to. That starts with your own company. You have to understand all of the goals and objectives your company is trying to achieve, the strategy it's trying to execute, but also then the same holds true for the clients or customers that you're dealing with. The better you understand the big picture for them, the better you can craft your solutions.
Yeah, well said, exactly right. It's all contextual, because what one client wants could be revenue, another one could be new customers, another one could be geographic expansion for us. So it's all contextual as to what solutions could be. Thank you. The second one is the GE 4E. So I ran a company at General Electric. It was a water company. And this was during the great Jack Welch era. And Jack had these 4 E's. Everybody was rated on the 4 E's. Everything you ever did was based around the 4 E's. And I'm going to touch on them super briefly. And Bruce didn't work with me at GE, so he might have some observations as to where he's seen this in practice. But what I would say is that these 4 things are critical regardless. It may have been a Jack Welch kind of oddity or specific type of approach to management, but they're the same thing. Energy, first E, you got to have energy. You got to wake up in the morning, popping into work, kind of a bounce in the footstep. Let's go tackle the day, whatever it is, right? It's not going to be, Eeyore the donkey walking into the Winnie the Pooh frame, looking like you're all defeated and all that. So energy. energized. You got to get other people energized. You got to be able to say, let's go get this thing, and how we're going to make this thing fun, creative. It's going to be difficult. It's not what we all wanted, but it's where we're at. It's what are we going to do? Get people energized. Execution is the ability to get stuff done. This is kind of super obvious, but you would not believe, in my experience in corporate America, how few people want to get things done. They like talking about them. They like shooting them down. They don't really jump onto the execution side. And then the final thing is edge. Edge is this ability to make a difficult decision. At GE, it was taken to the extreme. Meetings were very aggressive. They were filled with profanities and near fist fights and just crazy, crazy culture. Back in those days, not saying that's the way it is today. It's quite a different place nowadays. But the idea was that you had to have edge. Edge is somebody that you look at that you almost admire because they got that something to them. And a great example of this is Muhammad Ali. I watch a Muhammad Ali video every single morning before I start my workday of him talking at the Waldorf Astoria about how great he was. And that's a real edge. He just would edge himself into being, I'm the winner, I'm the winner, I'm the winner. So the reason I say embracing the 4 E's, the 4 GEEs, in addition to bringing solutions, is you have to ask yourself, if you want to have your career go in the path that you decided you want to, either vertically, horizontally, another organization, same organization, different industry, sponsor, team, league, whatever you want to do, are you displaying these 4 things? Because these are the intangibles, in many cases, the intangibles that add up to a differentiator for you as a person. Are you energy? Are you people that go, wow, here comes Bruce, here comes Ray, and he's never just moping around. He's going to get stuff done. He gets stuff done. He makes the tough decisions, not to be a jerk, but just to get them done. So these 4 E's, if you look at your life, you have to ask yourself, if you're going into work, are you displaying energy? Are you trying to energize other people? Are you trying to be a positive influence, not a negative influence, which is very easy to become, especially in times like this? A positive influence that gets stuff done, that suggests solutions, not talks about all the problems, talks about solutions, and has the edge to make the tough calls and tough discussions happen. Bruce, anything you want to say about 4 E's, or is that pretty close to
I'm just going to do a real quick connect the dots back to my previous point in terms of energize. In my experience with managing down and importantly with managing up, it's useful to energize people, even if they're not the type of people who are going to have that edge that Ray is talking about, or even have much of their own personal energy. You can energize them to a certain extent by making sure they understand what the team is pulling toward, that common goal. Your supervisor needs to understand that you understand it and that you're working toward it. And very importantly, people that are your direct reports and your fellow team members need to also have a good understanding of what is the goal, what are we pulling toward, and why is that important to us?
Yeah. Now, this doesn't mean reinvent yourself to become a Arnold Schwarzenegger type of character out of nowhere, right? That you're all of a sudden a super dynamic, crazy individual that tomorrow morning. This is within the context of who you are as a person, within your comfort level, within your social well-being. How do you do this in a way that makes sense with your personality and your inner direction? This is don't try and imitate anybody else. You will never pull off, a Robert Duvall in Apocalypse Now talking about death riding a black horse and throwing a card down on a dead body, right? It's just not. You can't pull these things off. You can't be disingenuous. You got to be genuine. Financial acumen. Wow. It's the 3rd thing on the list, but it's probably number 1 in reality. Now, financial acumen is just a term that we use for, do you understand how businesses work from a cash flow perspective? What's going to happen now in the coronavirus era is that most businesses run on 3 to 4 weeks of cash. That is gone because they're shutting down and there's no cash coming in. And then I'm talking about the theater industry, the travel industry, the airline industry, bookstores now, hairdressers, name a business, they're all going to run into what's really going to be a cash crunch. Well, unless you understand how that cash crunch occurs and how it's actually unfurling, itself in the fabric of your relationships, you're never going to be seen as a person with potential to move higher, right? If you don't even want to move higher, it'll help you understand why decisions are being made the way they are. This is super, super critical. And we have a thing that we do this with clients. We have a presentation. And the idea behind it is a couple things: getting a seat at the table, meaning how do you get to talk to the business people in your organization and at your sponsors, your clients, whatever. How do you talk to them? How do you get a seat at the table? You speak this idea of finance. You speak in the language of finance. And we use the analogy of, what we do in marketing is French. It's very sexy. It's very cool. We have teams, leagues, events, organizations, famous athletes, famous personalities, and it's all very sexy and very cool and very neat. But business people don't get it. They are worried about EBITDA, earnings before depreciation, interest, taxes, appreciation, and amortization. They're worried about net income. They're worried about earnings per share. They're worried about share price. They're worried about things that is a language of English. So while we talk, wow, look at the stickiness, look at the brand recall, look at the love scores, look at all these great brand things, business people hear it in French. They have no idea what that means to the share price. So financial acumen allows you to translate what you're doing in marketing to a language of English that they understand how it affects what's going to happen to the bottom line. They become very interested in talking to you once you do that. And that's in fact what our agency does almost its entirety, is take marketing things and put them into numbers and put them into English numbers that they understand, whether it's geographic reach, sales, penetration, share of pie, could be any number of things that they have. So financial acumen, and I'll talk about how to get this at the end of this, but realize if you aren't comfortable looking at a spreadsheet that has a profit and loss, an income statement today, if you don't understand how those work, this is a major focus you can use in this downtime, is to become much more comfortable with financial statements, because they are how the business world works. Very hard to see a CMO rise to the head of a corporation like a CEO, but he or she that is a finance person can get up there pretty easily because they know how all the numbers work, which is how everything works in the real life of business. It's all finance. It's all finance, whether it's public or private. Bruce, anything you'd add?
Yeah, I want to just focus on the second half of that bullet point, in that it is a great differentiator. And we've seen time and time again where we have great execution people, we have great creative people, we have all sorts of brilliant marketing perspectives, but we don't see a lot of people that have also the financial acumen skills, that understand the business of business well enough to transcend, and as Ray said, to get that seat at the table. So it may not be sexy, it may not be exciting, it may not be why you got in this business, but adding a degree of financial acumen, understand goals from a dollars and cents perspective and the impact on those, and to be able to translate actions into results in dollar terms. It is a huge differentiator and can really turbocharge results.
Yeah, turbocharges careers too, like unbelievably, when they feel like they can trust you, that you know the numbers that you're talking about and that you're not confused by these type of things. We do something at the beginning of our meetings with these large organizations, like, hey, anybody that knows the share price today of your major sponsor called Bank of America at the Panthers, anybody who knows the share price of that, raise your hand. Nobody will raise their hand. They'll have no idea. Yet that's exactly how Bank of America runs. The only thing they care about in reality is the bottom line of share price. That's where everybody's bonuses, that's where all their comp is, that's where all their relationships exist. So big thing. Next one is networking. With whom and how. This is not glad handing, walking through the main hall of your arena, your facility, of your office space or something. Hey, Ray Bednar, damn glad to meet you, kind of thing. It's not that handing out business cards. It's not that. It's networking in a way that is going to produce results for you. Much different than networking saying, I'm going to just meet as many people as possible. You want to make sure that as you're networking that you've identified the people that would be most important for you to meet, and not in an aggressive, hi, I'm Ray, I'd like a job with you. Hi, I'm Ray, I'd love to know more about your organization because it's intensely interesting to me on a personal level. It's more so like, who do you want to actually talk to? People that are thought leaders in your social network, with, let's say, your team, within your city, within your greater metropolitan area, within your sponsor, within sponsor groups, within people that are coming, that are potential sponsors, within clients or premium seat buyers or suite buyers. Really, the idea is, how do you know who it is? And it's not a numbers game, because you always hear about, well, I made 10 phone calls today. Well, did you make 10 phone calls to anybody that has the ability to buy anything or sell anything, or that you can sell anything to? That is a huge, huge, huge differentiator. It requires homework, requires a lot of homework, but it is a way to make sure you're not networking for the sake of keeping yourself occupied to no end in sight. This is a backward planning process. If you have an interest in being at a certain position in your life at some point in time, who are the people that influence that path to where you want to be, right? It could be a general manager of a club, it could be a division leader inside of a corporation, could be the head of ticket sales, could be any number of things. Whatever it is, what was their path and who did they connect with? And then take that as a path that you want to make sure you're leveraging in your networking events. Ron has the world class. I mean, I've known him for years. I spoke at one of his events a number of years ago. It is a fantastic opportunity when it becomes physical, or if it stays physical, or if it goes virtual, whatever happens. It is a fantastic opportunity to network. But networking is not about volume. It's about quality, not quantity. Bruce, anything you'd add?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One of the main things when you're doing your homework, one of the main things to look for is, what are the potential pain points that the person that you're going to network with is facing in their daily life. The better you can understand their perspective and what things are important to them and what things they may be struggling with, the better you're going to recognize an opportunity in that brief moment when it may arise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It's all about, we used to call it G2. G2 is Intel. It's the General Officer Staff Level 2, which means the intelligence officer. G2ing something means just get knowledgeable about what it is you're walking into. And it's so easy. I don't know, I won't do a hand raise. Don't want to call anybody out, but if anybody's seen the TV series You, which I think is going into a third season or something like that, my wife got me into this thing. It's a fantastic series. If you haven't watched it and you got time to binge right now, I would do it. But in this, the protagonist in You is a guy who learns everything about the woman that he stalks and all her friends through internet search. It's just not that hard to do. Bad example, poor social example, excuse me for that. But it's not that hard to do. It just requires effort and time. And that comes with quality over quantity. You're not trying to meet 30 people, you're trying to meet these 5 people. That's the 5 people that you think are most connected or can provide you the greatest insight into where it is you want to go. The last thing is positioning yourself as an expert by writing. If you want to survive in the academic world, if you have any hope for tenure in a university, you are writing your butt off, man. You are doing white papers, trying to get published in books. You are spending your whole life getting published, getting published, getting published. You don't need to do this at all in our profession, in the slightest. However, the more you write about stuff, the more people will perceive you as being really knowledgeable about what you just wrote. Doesn't mean that you are the expert in the field, doesn't mean that you're the brightest person in that field. It means that you've written about it, and ergo, the logic is, if you've written about it, you know it. Yeah, I haven't written about it, but you've written about it, so you must know it more than me. This provides a point of differentiation along with your financial acumen, along with your bringing solutions, not problems, in this portfolio of 5 things that differentiate you incredibly. In my case, I was running this agency and Bruce was the head of my office in Detroit. And we were co-located with a firm called Ogilvy & Mather, a major advertising firm. And so they got all these magazines. And I got all these magazines every time I went on the airplane just to flip through them. And one of them was Wired magazine, because they were a big client of Ogilvy & Mather's. And I'm flipping through it, and at the back, there's this little article about forget the business card. It's old, it's outdated, it doesn't make you any different. Write a book. That is how Sponsorship's Holy Grail got written. By the time I landed, I already had an outline for the book written. Bruce is my my editor in that book. That book positions us as very knowledgeable about sponsorship ROI. We have a certain proprietary methodology. It makes us different, but other people provide the same things, but they don't have a book. So my encouragement would not be to go start writing a book. It would be to start exploring how you can write to get published, to get recognized, to get noticed. It could be as simple as LinkedIn articles. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see I write an article a day. And I've taken massive times off from doing that when we're too busy with clients. But it's the more you write, the more you become knowledgeable because you research what you write, and the more comfortable you become discussing those topics, and the more known you become. You know, well, I don't know about where ticket sales are going, but geez, I know Bruce wrote an article about that. I saw that on his blog, on his LinkedIn profile, on his Twitter feed. So, you know, this writing thing is yet another bit of homework. What I would, and before I ask Bruce to comment on that, I would say, if you look at these 5 things, all 5 of these things require work, right? And if you want to have a successful career that is defined by where you want to go, they all require work. No, very, very few people come up and knock on your door and say, I want to give you $1 million for playing a video game on your couch during the day. You're going to have to work like crazy. But the thing of it is how do you work smartly, right? You only have so many hours in the day. How do you map this to make sure that you are thinking about solutions, which requires Googling some alternative potential solutions, about how you're finding the edge, about how you're looking to get this education, financial acumen, and getting through the education process of that. How do you stay fresh in that? How do you know to network who? Who are those 5 people you want to talk to? What's their background? How did they come up through the ranks? Where is their experience relative to your experience or with the experience you're trying to create for yourself? And then how are you spending the time writing? You did 500 words a day, you'd have a book in about 6 months. You don't even need to do that. You don't have to have anywhere near that ambition. You could look to be published in the Sports Business Journal. You can be looked to have an op-ed online. There's so many different ways you can do this. It's limitless with today's electronic world. And I think it really does provide you with yet another thing that, and again, we're building a portfolio of things to define your success along with the other 4 that provides a holistic view of somebody who's smart, well-informed, aggressive, knowledgeable, ambitious, and not ambitious in a bad way, ambitious to get things done and to help and to be a solution provider. So holistically, it's yet another thing to do. So I've given you, Bruce and I have given you 5 different ways to increase your workload. What the heck is that? But that's what it is. It's, if you want to have a successful career, it's doing these things at the expense of other things you may have been doing in the past, right? But it's refining your approach to those. Bruce, so positioning yourself as an expert by writing. Bruce, the former editor of a major publication, he edited my book. Well, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, we used to have a cartoon up on the wall at the Detroit News, and it was a guy throwing a dart, and on the target it said, "Today I'm an expert in," and it had like 20 or 30 topics. And that's the way journalism works. Today you're writing a story about, you know, the Olympics. Tomorrow you're writing a story about baseball. You know, it's you become a expert, or you become an expert at becoming an expert, and it's not that hard. Believe me, you can find enough information to do your 4 or 5 paragraphs that Ray was talking about. For example, as a LinkedIn article. And the main beneficiary of that is yourself, learning a little bit more depth about the topic that you're writing about, so that it's an exercise in personal development. I think the value of what Ray has done here in bringing these 5 points together is giving you clear direction. We can all work 22 hours a day and still not accomplish everything we want to accomplish. That's not realistic. You could be chasing, what they say, you chase 2 rabbits, you don't catch any of them. This way we have a clear direction from a guy who really has been there, done that, and our hope is that this can help you focus in on the things that are really going to be the most beneficial to your own career and your own definition of success.
Yeah, we'll talk about what some of the next steps will be for some of these, but just keeping mindful of the time, we're at 30 minutes. So let's go to the next slide, and we'll kind of cruise through some of these things. So the coronavirus impact, right? I'll talk about these things as quickly as I can, because you guys and gals are out there living this. Cognitive bias. Cognitive bias is this thing that happens in life, but it certainly happens with algorithms inside Google or Bing or whatever you tend to use to do any of your searching online. Cognitive bias means if I look for why, take an example, why politician A is such a jerk. If you type that into a Google search engine, it'll only return things that are cognitively, knowledgeably connected to that question. But it doesn't stop there. It then puts in your computer ID and then only wants to show you things that lead toward that solution that you're looking for, that this politician is a jerk. That's how it works. Very, very, very simple, but very, very, very powerful. Because you start seeing that if you say, when is the stock market going to correct? It's only going to give you stuff that's going to tell you when the stock market's going to correct for the most part. Because you're not going to click on the things that are going to have bad predictions. It says stock market's going to go down another 30. You're not going to click on it, so the algorithms can say, well, he or she didn't like that. Let's give them the one that says it's going to correct next week. Let's start giving them more on that. Algorithms self-correct for this. Be very careful in your cognitive bias when looking at coronavirus. Here's what I mean. One of the most popular things going on in the world today is flatten the curve, right? So flatten the curve, flatten the curve. It's all over YouTube. It's on every single news report. How do we keep the number of reported or actual coronavirus cases down to a level that gets below this mythical dotted line, which is our hospital bed capacity? And you see the big bump original curve get flattened out to this longer curve. Fantastic goal, great idea, best thing for humanity, wonderful objective. All these things have consequences. The longer that thing gets flattened, the longer the recovery is going to be in business. So we're saving human misery by flattening that curve from that spike that we see in the red normally in the far left side of the chart. And by flattening it out, we keep under that maximum bed capacity, but that's also economic impact over a much longer period of time. That is going to happen. We're not at Italy yet. Who knows where we're going to go in terms of our restriction, but you've seen everything close down from hairdressers to gymnasiums to everything except grocery stores and pharmacies, basically, in a lot of these places. So that is going to be an ongoing theme until our leadership decides that it's not, and that's going to have to be based upon coronavirus cases not increasing, that somehow our social distancing is working. If you look for when is this going to get back to normal, and you phrase that into a cognitive bias phrase inside of the search engine, you're going to get positive things. You're going to say, I only got to make it another month, because in 1 month, this whole thing's going to recover, and everybody's back. The arenas are open. The teams are playing. Everything is hunky-dory. Rainbows are going and flowers are everywhere. It's not going to happen unless you search it in a very holistic way that looks for the most generalized answer you can find. So don't look for coronavirus to disappear using a cognitive bias. Look at it from a completely disconnected, dispassionate viewpoint. This is going to change our industry. When 9/11 happened, I remember I was in business at the office. My wife called me and said, my gosh, an airplane just went into the tower. And I said, Mike, that's crazy. I turned it on. I said, well, that's insane. Somebody must have flown an airplane in the tower with an idiot. And then 9/11 happened, and it changed the travel industry forever. Believe it or not, a very, very long time ago, you used to be able to go to a gate without going through metal detectors. You didn't have to go through these long airport waits. Airplanes were empty. You'd have a whole seat to yourself. People were nice. Not that all airlines aren't nice, but they were as stressed out as they are nowadays. So it changed it forever. Coronavirus is going to change our industry forever. It's not an extinction event by any means. We're not going to lose events. Events are coming back. They're coming back super strong. They're going to come back a little bit different. This is just an old growth dying off horse situation. So within your management guidelines, meaning your higher ups that are telling you what they want you to communicate to your partners, friends, associates, properties, people that work for you, whatever. Make sure you understand their guidelines so you don't contradict them. Communicate to your partners on what you think the realistic future is, so you become a trusted, relied upon partner. Don't feed them sunshine when the sunshine's not going to be on the horizon. The most optimistic scenarios right now have recovery coming in the fourth quarter of this year. That's optimistic. More than likely it'll be Q2 of 2021. Those are the likely is Q2 of 2021. The optimistic is fourth quarter of 2020, which means you'll see some pickup to normalcy in August, September, if everything goes great and this doesn't get out of control. That's the optimistic. Now there's a pessimistic that goes much worse than that, which involves financial crisis and financial collapse of the markets because everybody runs out of cash, very doom and gloom. But what you need to do now is start planning for this active virus period precautions in the post-virus reset period when people are going to be reintroduced back into your environment. Are you discussing how sanitization is going to become a major part of your operations, a major part of your communications, a major part of the services you're going to have to provide? You're going to have that place bathed in Purell every time a client or a customer turns around. There's so many things to start planning for and thinking about now when you have the time. Just don't over optimistically bend it toward you thinking it's going to end soon, because it's not. Bruce, would you add anything to this coronavirus impact?
No. In fact, I'm really interested to hear what sort of questions we get out of this.
Yeah, it's going to change our industry. Please do not go Pollyanna and think that everything's going to go back and the doors are going to open and everybody's going to fill these seats again, or that your relationship with the property is going to bloom back to full capacity again. Things are changing.
Hey, Ray?
We've never canceled. Yeah.
Ray, if I could, I want to just jump on something that Bruce just said. For the people who are listening on the webinar, this is Ron speaking. I just wanted to let you know there's a box on your grid right there. If you look on the side of your screen, there's usually a little chat box there. And Bruce had mentioned he's curious as to see what kind of questions you might have. And so this is a great opportunity just to let you know, and sorry to interrupt here, but if you have any questions, you'll see it right there. Just type your message here. You don't have to put your name to it, but if you do have a question, Carly will Carly's the producer of the webinar here, and we'll throw it out to her at the end when we've got some time for Q&A. So that said, please feel free to email in or just fill in the box here any questions that you have, and we'll get to them. Thanks so much. Please continue, Ray.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate that. So that's coronavirus. I mean, it's a major thing. It's a tectonic plate shift for us, but it's not an extinction event. Everybody's going to be very occupied with this going forward, and things will return, but probably not as quickly as we had hoped. I think the last slide then is next steps. And next steps is in addition to the 5 things we think are critical to your path, here's some things you can do now. If you don't have mentors, find them and find good mentors. That doesn't mean it's going to be people you like. Some of the best mentors in my life were not people I particularly liked, would not have gone out and had a beer with, but they were really good mentors. Form peer groups. If you're not talking about this as peer groups, many of you're very, our industry and particularly the younger demographic in our industry are very social to begin with through social media networks and all that. But find peer groups and support groups to help you through some of these areas that you want to get better at or that you're dealing with. You know, a classic support group would be anger management, because things just tick you off or people tick you off or you're dissatisfied, that kind of stuff. We have a basic coaching series. We'll send you out a note on that later, but it's a very, very low pressure expansion of these key areas that you need to focus on over the next 12 months. It's very simple. And within that, it has a fee, but there's boilerplates that we provide. You can go to your organization and ask them for funding. It's very, very, very minor funding, or you can fund it yourself. The last thing I talk about, besides this adoption of these 5 attitudes and this idea of finding mentors and supports and peer groups, is it time for a higher education MBA? I mean, I get littered with this all the time. Hey, is this a good time for me to leave and go get my master's in business, get my master's in sports management, get my master's in anything? You know, and I just wanted to touch on it briefly. I think it's a changing time for the MBA, but I have an MBA. My son is in an MBA program right now. I think the MBA is a highly valuable thing to have in your educational background and your experience background. It's changing dramatically. I think that what we're going to see is its value is going to be diminished in some cases compared to other things you can be doing. And it's a massive cost to do. So unless it's something you really had your heart set on, a lot of people think this is a good time to do that. You know, in 2008, when this happened, everybody went to the MBA programs. MBA schools were just maxed out because nobody could get a job in the post-financial crisis of 2008. Think hard about that because it is a massive investment, great reward, a big risk reward trade-off. And I think that the next one, so on this slide, you see I have my address and my website, email address, Raymond Bednar, all one word, at Hyperion-marketing.com. My office number, my cell number. Please feel free to contact me. If you want to talk about anything further, we'll get in contact with you. We'll send you out a note about a basic coaching program if you wanted to get into that. It's not something Bruce and I have done on a scale like this before, because we do it almost only with clients at the client's request. It's a very client contextual thing with the in-person training and then follow-up. But I think this is different times. I think it's a different change in our industry. And because of that, I think it's a good opportunity for us to offer a wider program to people in hopes that it would help provide some sort of guidance, unless you have a mentor that can really do it individually with you. And Bruce, do you have any closing comments? I don't know if we have any questions. My guess is there'll be few, but if there are any, we'll take those. But Bruce, do you have any closing comments?
No, I'm interested to hear what other people say, whether it's right now or, you know, following up with us by email or, you know, some other method. Make this a dialogue. Make us part of your mentor group.
Well, yeah. if I could, gents, could I throw a couple questions at you?
Sure.
All right. And by the way, for those of you in the audience that are listening, if you do have questions or you do want to talk to Bruce or Ray in depth, or you have a question you perhaps didn't want to put on here, just email Carly, Carly, C-A-R-L-I-E, at sports, S-P-O-R-T-S -forum, F-O-R-U-M.com. As Bruce was saying, we will forward those questions on to Bruce and to Ray and pose it to them, or if any of you do want to have conversations with them. I think it was a great point that you just made a second ago, Ray, about, I mean, in this time, particularly in this landscape, you really do need to invest in yourself. It's probably one of the most important things you can spend your money on is investing in yourself. But the question I want to run by you, because our company here at the Forum, much like so many companies out there, all of our staff are working at home. So in this climate that we have here, any tips that you might have for folks that are, you know, help them to stay focused and effective, to be impactful when they're working at home? I mean, out of sight can be out of mind. So what sort of insights might you share on keeping people, you know, on point during the crisis and making sure that they're still making a difference at their business?
Yeah, it's a great question. And really it centers around, at least from our perspective, is this mantra that we've had, which is discipline sets you free. And it sounds like almost an oxymoron. It sounds like counterintuitive, but the more disciplined you are, the more free you are. And it's something that I've learned over decades of business and business travel and everything else is, without discipline, very, very, very few things get done. So if discipline sets you free, it means you have to spend the time to look at your calendar, whether you're using Outlook or Google account, whatever it is, and make sure that time is being scheduled and adhered to, and you're plotting time for these critical things that will make you a better person. Some of the 5 things we talked about, but also for time for holistic things, for working out, for friendship time, for contacting peers in family, for spiritual time, for meditation time, for yoga, for whatever it is you do to keep you sane. And then within this other time that you've got planned, you got to stick to it. It's discipline, man. It's easy to look out the window. When I first started to work at home, 2 or 3 decades ago, or whatever it was a very, very unusual, weird thing to do. And it was extremely difficult. I had kids and the kids thought I was home to play. My wife thought I was able to do chores and run errands. And it was very, very difficult time for me. It's totally different when you've done it for a long period of time. So I'd say it's really, Ron, a question of discipline. Can you stay disciplined like you're in the office and still deliver on all these things that you've got to deliver on as an associate, an employee, a friend, a sponsor, whatever, but also take a look at these suggestions, one of which I gave you that I'll give you a good way to follow on with your time now, if it makes sense to you, and if you discuss it with the person you report to, your boss, whatever, it might make sense. Go to Udemy. Go to any one of the number online course catalog providers and type in financial acumen, type in financial reporting, type in understanding financial reports, and see what offers are out there today. I think Udemy is somewhere around $10 a course or $20 or something like that. Invest in yourself to learn on your own what financial acumen means. Start researching some of these things we talked about. Put away some disciplined time to do that, and not fall prey to, we're going to go stand in the line at Trader Joe's, which we have in our case now. There's a line. You only allow 40 people in the store. So there's a line that goes around the place. It means it's no longer just a big crowd when you go in there like it's always been. It's a line to get in there to stand in there. So before you do that, think about how you want to what result you want at the end of this historic and hopefully not reoccurring virus attack that is just going to change our sports world. Where do you want to be? How are you going to invest in yourself? But really make sure you're delivering on the goals of your organization, because I think Ron's characterization is best: out of sight, out of mind, man. It used to be, a stable of corporate America. Hey, just don't go in front of anybody's office. You won't get more work. That's not the case anymore.
No, great answer. Thank you very much. And as you sit there and read the doom and gloom sayers, I've got to ask this question as well. If there is some accuracy here, and we start to see a lot of layoffs, more layoffs, we already are starting to see it. But I mean, you're hearing that the unemployment rate could climb from 3.5% up to 20%, which would be catastrophic. But that means that there might be some folks on the line here that could find themselves looking for a job. So any tips that either of you might share on standing out from the crowd when you're applying for a job? If you don't stay where you are and you're looking to go someplace else, how do you stand apart and get noticed out there?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the critical thing that always affected me in hiring anybody was they knew what I did and they knew my business. And I'll give you a super simple related example of a property coming to sell me at Bank of America, where they come in with a beauty book, as we used to call it. So this is the greatest property on the face of the earth. You won't believe how lucky you are if you get involved with us, because we're the most famous, insert name here, basketball, baseball, NFL, Olympic, whatever team in the history of the world. And here's everything you're going to get for $1 million. Here's what you get for $2 million. Here's what you get for 100,000. Right? None of them would come in and say, we understand your biggest problem is checking accounts, that you've got to open up 1 million checking accounts this year, and that you need your investments in relationship with sports properties somehow open up checking accounts. I've got an idea. Why don't we do branded checking accounts that are opened at special customer events inside of our stadium before the game, before the event, before the concert, whatever it is. And that would go like, wow, somebody actually knows my business. They know that when I go back to get the money for this stuff from the corporation, they're going to want to know how many checking accounts, not, wow, aren't we lucky to be associated with the most famous sports property in the world? Same thing with you. If you want a job with another organization, with another team, with another entity, you've got to know who they are, what drives them, what their goals are, what their objectives are. All this is extremely easy to find online, unless you're talking about a very, very private organization like a venture capital fund. They're all easy to do this kind of intel work and really have a great understanding. So when you talk to them, you're not saying, hey, my name's Ray and I need a job and I've got this great background, ran a company G and all that. They go, I don't care, I got 1 million of those people. But when you say, look, I know how to make your checking accounts go up 7% in New York City. Wow, do I want to talk to you? Because that's one of my big pain points. And that is more easily facilitated if you can read financial statements, because all that stuff is going to be disclosed in great detail in the annual report in these weird little SEC filings, Security Exchange Commission filings called 10Ks and 10Qs. They will tell you everything you need to know if you can read a financial report, which is, again, another reason why that's so important.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. And Bruce, anything on your end that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I think that, it just comes back to being results driven and delivering results. And whether it's with the company that you're currently with and showing that your promotion material, or as Ray said, with a organization you're targeting, is to understand results, to show that you're focused on results, and to show that you're delivering results. And it doesn't hurt to remind people of those types of achievements. Know your value and know how to explain it and call it out, because people aren't out there looking to determine what your value is. They're busy focused on what they're trying to achieve.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well put. And thank you. I know as we very quickly ran through this hour, but I just want to say thank you very much on behalf of all of us listening in today. And like I said before, for anybody that has questions, by all means, just send them to Carly at sports-forum.com. And she'll make sure they get to Ray and to Bruce. But certainly our thanks to Raymond Bednar and Bruce McLaughlin, both from Hyperion Marketing Returns. Thank you, Ray, for leaving your screen up here for people that would like to check out that website that you can see, hyperion-marketing.com. Reach out to Ray, certainly reach out to Bruce. I mean, again, like we said at the top of the hour, this is certainly something that maybe we don't spend enough time on. I mean, I've heard it said that many people may spend more time, working on their next vacation than they do working on their career. And it certainly is something that we definitely need to dedicate more time to, particularly in times like this. So take advantage of maybe a little bit of opportunities that you have here, and bridge those gaps where you might have that economic, some great insight that you have here. So as we wrap up, Ray, I'm going to ask if there's anything else you want to say in closing.
No, I would just say keep the faith. It's there's a great article by C.S. Lewis on the atomic age, when the bomb was dropped at the end of World War II, and how everybody thought it was the end of the world. And he compared it to the bubonic plague that hit London once every single year in the 1600s. In the Spanish flu that hit the United States. So all the stuff passes. Don't get caught up in the drama of the moment. Just stay positive, stay focused, and it'll all pass. Everything's going to be great. Events are coming back. They're not going anywhere. They're more important than ever. They're just going to be done a little bit different. And I look forward to working with any of you that want to reconnect. And thanks again, Ron, for the time. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much, Ray. Really appreciate it, Bruce. Carly, thanks so much for your help in putting this together. And certainly our thanks to all of you listening tonight. Our first Monday night webinar. We hope you enjoyed it. You'll be hearing more webinars from us on an ongoing basis. We've been doing these for years and hope to do them for more years. So thank you so much, everybody. Stay safe, and we will certainly be talking to you coming up here. Again, thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Awesome.
All right, thanks.
Good night.